Joining us now, I am delighted he is with us, my dear friend Sebastian Gorka, of course, Deputy Assistant to the President, and he joins us now. So, Dr. G, I'm going to call you Dr. Z. So, Dr. G, first of all, is that right? I mean, is what Andy Card said the right way to look at it, that the world needs America, so Trump's America First agenda, as he articulated it, basically has to change as time goes on?
I think there's a similar but not exactly the same way of looking at it, which is America stands for something. If 1776 means something to the world, it's because we believe in absolute truths. There is a moral clarity with which we founded the Republic. And as such, that is reflected in our actions around the world. We have to be very leery of concepts such as the international system or the international community. But America stands for something, and that reality has to be reflected in how we interact with other nations. So, yes, it's not a modification. Donald J. Trump hasn't changed from November the 7th to, Good Friday, April the 14th. But if there is an influence to be had on the world, it better be our values, Laura, don't you think, as opposed to the values of some other nations out there?
Dr. Gorka, the concern of, I think, people who wanted a real break, though, from the Bush way, which was more of an internationalist, globalist way forward, was that they were concerned that the more mired you get into these very complex foreign policy and geopolitical military situations, usually is the case that domestic policy suffers. Pat Buchanan was talking about these types of issues. Let's listen.
That launch of that strike on Syria, what bothered me so much was not that the United States, that the Syrians did not deserve it, but that he's taken a first step, and if he puts another foot into Syria, he will never get out, and we will never get out of the Middle East, and it will consume his presidency.
Reaction.
That's a straw man. Whose feet were in Syria when we dropped unmanned cruise missiles? I mean, it's just arguing from the extremists. It makes no sense. The idea that we are mired in something when we take an action that lasts 15 minutes, or yesterday that lasted 1 second on the detonation of a bomb, is just a fallacious analogy. We are not mired in anything. And think of what has happened since then, the geopolitical ramifications. Vladimir Putin didn't want to meet with us. Oh, really? Well, he did. What happened with regards to the shipment of coal from North Korea to China? These are not accidental issues. So this is the master of the art of the deal, getting other countries to understand America is back. But this isn't 2003. This isn't 1991 and the first Gulf War. And the president has changed absolutely not one whit when it comes to the question of ground troops and intervention in other people's countries. This is not the Bush administration, and this is not neoconservatism. That is why Trump's supporters can rest easy, Laura.
One thing, Sebastian, that I was thinking about, it was as I was listening to President Trump discuss our relationship with China, and if we get help from them in North Korea, we'll cut a better tax deal. And then China apparently turned around some shipments of coal that North Korea uses for important energy source, and Donald Trump praised that. Is it wise to tie our trade objectives to North Korea this early?
To tie up, look, we have in the Commander-in-Chief a man who has not only survived but has thrived in the toughest market in the world. That is the real estate market in New York. Not only thrived, he's a billionaire with a brand that is global. I think we can trust his instinct This is a man who knows how to negotiate. That is his, I mean, I really strongly recommend, this isn't a book pitch, but if you can borrow from the library, just read or listen to The Art of the Deal, and you will understand what is going on right now. And one of the most important things he says is, never be wedded to any particular deal. You've got to be flexible. You've got to play for the breaks. And that is what is happening. We're not locking our economic policy to anything, because the bottom line is he's a patriot and he's a pragmatist. But when something is advantageous, when the two things overlap, an economic policy and a national security one, well, you should go with that as well.
And Sebastian, finally, the question for me is China more likely to be an important U.S. ally than Russia? And given China's past behavior and cheating and human rights violations, et cetera, why should we think that China was going to be a better ally to us, or we should have a cozier relationship with China than Russia, given what China's done to us economically in recent years, and also funding Iran, et cetera?
I would use, for neither of those countries would I use the word ally. Ally actually has a legal connotation. It's when we have a treaty obligation, such as our NATO allies. But we can collaborate. That's absolutely not out of the question. Why? I think there's less, this may sound strange, but there's a tad less chip on the shoulder with regards to Beijing than there is in Moscow. There's less of the nostalgia than there for things 30 years ago. And because China is a rational actor, Laura.
Sebastian Gorka, you are so great to come on, and happy Easter. We're delighted that you shared some time with us. Thank you so much for your perspective.